Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. We're going to wait for a few other people to come on in, but in the meantime, this is Loic, and we look forward to having you. All right, so we're going to get started. For those of you that do not know, Plato is a service which is available for folks. And what we try to do is we offer one-on-one mentorship as well as AMA sessions for individuals who are trying to better themselves as managers. So part of that is having these webinars with individuals such as Loic. Today's main focus is going to be discussing hiring at scale. Loic definitely has some experience doing so in his past at DocuSign as one of the VP of engineering. And so we're gonna be discussing that and kind of that realm. So to kind of start us off, Loic, what I wanted to discuss is we're both in San Francisco now, and typically something that comes in a lot on our end is hiring at scale. I hear about it all the time. People are constantly trying to hire. It's a very, very aggressive market, and some people are a lot better than others, DocuSign being one of them. In the past 2 years, they've seen 40% growth. And you know, I really want to be diving into a little bit more about how you've been able to have such an effective way about hiring, and hear a little bit more about tips and tricks from your point of view. But to start us off, do you mind giving us a little bit more about your background and how you kind of ended up at DocuSign to begin with?
Yeah, sure. So basically, you will basically hear that I'm French. I was basically working in France since the beginning of my career, mostly working for big companies. I would say big, I would say legacy, successful companies, not hiring a lot. So because they were already like more than 100,000 people in those companies. So you don't hire at scale. When you hire, you basically pick and choose and you take your time and everything. So I did a couple of companies like that, like Orange in France, a telco company, Thales, which is some kind of a Northrop Grumman in the US, and some other. And then I moved to a small SMB. So we were 60. But the success we were basically living, we were working fine, and I was the CTO there, and basically competing in the digital signature market. But hiring was always like kind of tricky, because it's when you're 60, adding a new hire, when you don't have an hyper growth from a revenue perspective, it's, well, you have to think about it.
Yeah.
But we were quite successful in the French market, and then basically DocuSign acquired us. So I've been acquired with the company there 3.5 years ago, and then I've seen.
Okay.
And then I've seen to be part of a hyper growth, I would say, company. DocuSign was like in 2013, it was like 4 guys, and now we are more than 3,000 today, and the growth is continuously growing.
Right.
So it's, I would say, rather than speaking about hiring at scale, it's how to have the hiring being industrialized, and something that is really mechanics that you just have to have the playbooks so that you keep growing with the same pace, and not having the kind of, I would say, ad hoc kind of way to hire when what I've seen in the past before joining DocuSign. And I'm working in San Francisco since a year now, more than a year. And yeah, my primary job is basically to hire and keep my team happy. That's my job.
Right.
So yeah, that's it.
Okay, so you as a whole, you're overlooking the whole hiring process, and
so yeah, so I'm basically accountable for. So I have my hiring budget. It's year over year, based on what basically the project team wish to achieve. I basically say, okay, so then I need probably 20, 30 more engineers on that space, in that area. And then I try to see, okay, I need them around Q1, Q2, Q3, so try to plan a bit. And then we have a full team dedicated to support you, so 8 from HR. So it's basically HR helping us to build the pipeline.
Yeah.
Because we talk about the pipeline of people applying to the jobs to allow us to have basically really good engineers and hire, I would say, with high volume.
Yeah, of course.
Which is tricky.
Right.
Which is tricky.
And so for you, because you, when DocuSign had acquired you guys, you were over in Paris at the time, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you made that transition from going from Paris to San Francisco, was that a big shift in your hiring process? And did you have to think about things differently?
So sure. So for example, in France, the legal framework is totally different. So when you want to hire someone, I would say starting from the day or the guy says yes and sign the contract, you have to wait 3 months. Because basically, as an employee, you owe 3 months to your company so that they can arrange the knowledge transfer and everything. So it's also, I would say, counterbalance with the safety net from the social security and stuff. So the counterpart is you owe some part of your time to your company, even if you decide to leave.
Yeah.
So basically, every hire, it's a really mature decision. And when you switch from a company to another one, it's a really big decision to make. In the US, it's like when someone says yes, like 2 weeks after, the guy is basically on the floor and working.
Yeah.
So that was one of the, I would say, the biggest shift. And also the difference with what I've seen in France, and especially 10 years back, when you were hiring, people wanted to join the company. So you were basically assessing the engineers.
Yeah.
Now it's basically the other way around. The engineers are assessing the company they want to enter in.
Right.
So basically, in an interview, I'm trying to assess the guy, but I know that the guy is assessing me, and he's basically asking himself or herself, do I want to work with that guy or with that company? Which is totally different. So it's like you're not confident, you're not safe. So as the hiring person, you know that, oh damn, I want that person. She's great, she's amazing, I want her. And then you're like, oh shit, so I'm not assessing her. I need to really sell the team. I need to sell the project. I need to sell everything. So it's more interesting. Right. It's more bidirectional than it used to be.
And now, so that being said, I'd imagine that's not really, an engineer's job to kind of get into like the sales mode. But when you transition into management, when your main goal is hiring, that's a different transition. So like, how did you build up that confidence for yourself, and how did you kind of overcome that? Because clearly you're doing a good job at it now.
It would be interesting to define what is a good job at hiring. But, and I would say pretty, not sarcastic, but cynical about that, because it's funny. I read a book that is, and I would advise everyone to read it. It's called Think Fast and Slow from Daniel Kahneman. So the guy was a sociologist and a researcher in that field. And in Israel. And basically the guy was, during his military period in Israel, or beginning of his career, he was assigned to basically assess the new people joining the army and trying to spot the leaders, which is basically assessing people during a 5 hours kind of exercise and trying to spot which ones would be the leadership track in the army, which is exactly what we do when we hire. We are basically 5 hours trying to assess the hard skills, the soft skills, and basically the cultural fit. So the outcome of what it says is, no matter what they did, basically the general in the army were saying what they were doing. So their assessment was barely better. I would say just a bit better than just blind guess. And what it says is the more he was doing it, the more confident he was trying to basically point the leader. But the result at the end was exactly the same. Long story short, so they call that the illusion of validity. So the more you do it, the more you believe you're good. But at the end of the day, assessing someone within 5 hours, well, it's prone to error, no matter what. No matter, I would say, how good you are, it's prone to error.
Yeah.
So that book was, for me, it helped me to be like, you know what? At the end of the day, I will make some mistakes.
Yeah.
That's fine. So it's not a moment where I'm trying to be like inquiry and making sure that this is the real good hire. I will make mistakes.
Yeah.
So the goal is just to, I would say, doing the basics, hard skills. If the person is a good engineer, it's quite easy.
Right.
But trying to understand if it's a good leader or if that's the good cultural fit, this is where I spend the most time.
Okay.
And always with that idea that anyway, when you hire, I would say more than, so this year would be 200 engineers. 200, probably 10% would be like, nah.
Yeah.
So the thing is, you have to be able to accept the fact that no matter what you do, you will fail at some point.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you have to know that and be able to react.
Okay.
So those 10%, what do you do when you have those?
Yeah.
So you have to be able to react, because it's not possible to just jeopardize a team that is working well.
Yeah.
You bring 2 engineers and one of them is like toxic and you didn't spot it during the 5 hours. What do you do?
Yeah. So then, I mean, what do you do?
Oh, so this is where the management is a job.
Yeah.
So part of the hiring process for sure is trying to have this filter and making sure that you have the right kind of cultural fit. But it's also ensuring that when the person is onboarded, that the person is really, I would say, bringing the value you were hoping for.
Yeah.
And if it's not the case, so of course you're trying to, I would say, change the things. But at some point, if the person you bring in is really toxic, you have to take the hard decision.
Yeah.
So it's easy to hire, and it's part of the nice job saying, hey, welcome to the team and everything. But when you do a mistake, it's also your duty and your job to just say, sorry, but the value that you're bringing doesn't, compared to the toxicity or the change you bring to the team, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Okay. So would you say that you emphasize more on the hiring side or the actual onboarding and getting the people ramped up side?
I would say it's it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
So basically, the contract signed is definitely not the end of it. It's not like, okay, the contract is signed, my job is done, go to the next one.
Right.
Definitely. So what I do is usually, and the people that are coming from the outside, this external point of view. So what I do usually, not usually, every time, after 1 month, I'm just having just a chatty chat with the person, understanding, okay, what about the team there? So we sell you the company, we sell you the team, we sell you the big project and everything. What's the reality? How far it is? So what were your expectations? Where were your expectations, and where are you now? Yeah. Is there some kind of discrepancy between the two? And just by doing that, sometimes you just put something, say, oh shit, okay, we'll fix that. No worries.
Yeah.
And then the experience for the new employee is like, damn, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And usually I do that then after 3 months. So 3 months from the T0 to ensure that, hey, now you're good, you're fine, and everything. Yeah, sure. Or, you know what? And then you can have some ad hoc, I would say, conversation, try to make sure that everything is fine. So after these 3 months, this is where I say, okay, hire is done, the guy is great, he's in the team, and feel part of it.
Yeah. So
it's definitely not at the time when you sign the contract.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Yeah, or the DocuSign.
Yeah, DocuSign the contract. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And so one thing I wanted to point out for the folks that are joining us, we have a live Q&A. So what I wanted to say is, if any of you have questions, feel free to ask them and submit them throughout the time. Also hearing that the sound quality is not the best, so we're gonna change the microphone there. Hopefully that's a little bit better. So also a question that I had for you is something that I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into is prior to actually hiring and going through about like the initial stages of the organization, what does that typically look like? What is your roadmap and hiring goals look like, and how do you organize that?
So it's and especially now we are public, so we have some commitment to do.
Yeah.
And we work on a quarterly basis. So basically the product team. So we have, I would say it's quite usual in the Bay, but you have your multi-horizon strategy. Basically, say, okay, horizon 3 is like 2 years from now. Horizon 2 is like 1 year and a half, and horizon 1 is like this year.
Yeah.
And it's some kind of a rolling, I would say, planning process where basically you have the vision, and I would say over time you precise what you want to do, or you change given whatever I would say the insight from the product team is receiving. And based on that, the company knows where to invest. It's like I would say the usual say, okay, this year we want to go big on whatever the feature is or whatever the market is. We want to go big in that. those teams, so those engineering teams will be the one basically focusing on that. So guys, this is roughly said what we want to achieve. How many engineers do you need? And we are, we're public, so you want to give break even. You have the stock market everyone is looking at and everything. So you cannot just be like, okay, I need 100 engineers to do whatever. So each time it's some kind of I would say a rough estimation of what will be needed. Some kind of a deal with the product team saying, yeah, I probably need 10 guys, 10 folks, sorry, to do that, and for the next year. And you basically plan that along the year. Because you cannot just onboard 100 engineers at day zero. So you have basically to have some kind of say planning about that, because the team cannot sustain, I would say, 10 engineers like that.
Yeah.
You have to have, I would say, for a team of, I don't know, I would say a team of 5 can basically really nicely onboard one guy.
Yeah.
So this is roughly set the ratio I have. So a team of 10 too, and you need probably a month and a half to have someone, I would say, really efficient, at least a bit autonomous, and basically releasing the rest of the team so that we can hire a new one.
Yeah.
So it's roughly said the kind of ratio I have and try to keep. That said, the life is always changing, and you can have, and sometimes you have just opportunity. So that was not the right time, but we have a good referral, and the person is just amazing. Okay, now. Yeah. Because you cannot just wait and say, no, it was planned for Q2, so let's wait. So in such a case, easy decision, say, okay, we have an amazing engineer wanting to come. It's a referral, and referral is definitely key when you want to hire at scale.
Yeah.
And then for those, it's outside of the planning inside.
Okay. And so I'm also curious about the attraction process of attracting potential candidates. Are you typically referring or relying on referrals, or is it something that you're going out yourself and finding individuals?
So it's a mix. It's a mix. But to be fair, when you have referral, so we have all the data that shows that basically when a referral comes in, the person is usually staying longer in the company, joining a friend. So it's always more successful. So I would say the probability to have a successful engineer, successful new employee and part of the team when it's a referral are way higher compared to someone that is just random and outside of the market. And today, I think it's around the 40-ish% of the engineers that comes are referral.
Okay.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's when you have a lot of referral, it says basically two things. First, that your engineers have a good network. And second, they feel really well in the company, so they bring friends.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's amazing. And then the hiring process is usually faster because you don't have so much to sell the company because the person knows about how it is in the company.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a way, and this is something that we try to enforce. So I won't provide the amounts, but this is something we give incentive to our engineers.
Okay.
For engineers and other kind of people. But I would say that all our employees can refer someone. And there's an incentive for doing that. Okay. So and usually so as an engineer, you have your own career, but when you refer someone, you know that that person needs to be good because it will, no matter what, reflect on you. Yeah. So basically, usually the person that are referred are good. Yeah. So it's a really nice way. But that said, we also have the regular, I would say, kind of ways to, and there's different pillars to hire. But I would say the usual social network. So using Glassdoor, using LinkedIn, and it's probably 30% of the 30-40% of the people that applies comes from ads in those sites, especially Glassdoor, because so lucky enough we have a really nice grade on Glassdoor, so it helps a lot. Okay, it helps a lot. Yeah. So, and as we know that, so it's and it's funny because we always talk about. I would say a nice place to work and best place to work and everything. And some people are kind of cynical about it, saying that, but who cares anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's just for marketing. We don't really care. We care. Even from a business perspective, if you are a CEO, having a best place to work is, so basically it's a huge impact on the number of people applying to the company. Right. So it's definitely a business asset to have this kind of good culture, good vibes in your company. Yeah, so you have to focus on building up that culture. And I would say another way also we have to we have as a tool to hire is what we call the acqui-hire. So it's basically doing an acquisition for the sake of hiring a team.
Okay.
So I will take some example. And so for example, I will take a buzzword on purpose, and especially one that is not working anymore, but blockchain.
Yeah.
Let's assume you want to do some blockchain stuff within your product for whatever reason, and you have found the business with that. Awesome. Hiring people with the skill set will take time. That will take time. Acquiring a small startup that didn't do well. So I would say some kind of a failure, but still a good engineering team and working on it. Some kind of a 5 to 10 engineers that basically were a team and working on that area, but not successful. This is a good target to acquire a team.
Yeah.
So this is something that DocuSign did in the past for specific, I would say, skill set. You just pick a startup that was okay. So basically, it's roughly said cheap. Of course, it's I would say at the end of the day, it's more expensive than just hiring, but it's faster, and you have a team.
Yeah.
The team is already a team, so it's way more efficient to do that. So it can be done, and it's a nice complement to, I would say, the regular strategy, the regular way to hire to do some kind of stuff like that.
I see. And so then how do you find the balance between cultural fit and then technical skill? And like, what's your way of measuring that balance, and what are you typically looking for?
I would say it depends. It depends. I'm hiring mostly managers now, and who are themselves hiring. So, and this is my way to basically scale the hiring. I'm not hiring only managers able to manage. I'm hiring people that I would love to be hired by.
Right.
So when you do this kind of assessment in the manager, especially, I'm just looking for, okay, do I want to work with this guy? If this guy was trying to hire me, I would love to work with him. So this is what I look for. So that I can be some kind of I can defer the hiring process to that person so that he can, it's a nice way to duplicate the capacity in hiring. On the cultural fit, so it's the tough part, defining the culture, and so everyone is talking about the culture and everything. But it's kind of tough to first really define what is the culture, and trying to, what is the fit? At the end of the day, it's really subjective. So even if you're trying to, I want someone that is, I don't know, well, anyway, I won't provide an example, but it's, at the end of the day, it's really subjective. You are facing a person, and it's your interaction, and you say, I like the guy.
Yeah. And
this is, at the end of the day, what you mean by, it's part of the culture. Then looking, is it business-oriented? Is it more technical-oriented, inclusive, and everything, this kind of stuff? It's kind of tough, I would say, and there's no magical brand. And as I said before, at the end of the day, you will make mistake.
Yeah.
So it's fine. I would say it's totally fair to just say, I feel the guy. Or I feel that woman. She's amazing. And period. Because anyway, if you get wrong, you just have to fix it.
Right.
So and at the end of the day, most of people are just nice.
Yeah. So
it's not like it's 50-50 and you have to be careful about who you hire. People are most of the time nice. Yeah. So it's basically focusing on the cultural fit. People can fit.
Yeah.
I would say most of the people, people in the street, you see them. Some can be toxic, but it's like 10%. And no matter what, those guys, those person are smart. They can fake. Yeah. So there's no way. Well, if it's obvious, okay, but usually it's not. And then it's afterward that you have to take care of the situation.
Right. Right. So folks, we're going to be opening it up to Q&A really quickly. But one more question for you, Loic, before we do so. Once again, if you guys want to submit questions, there's a Q&A format that you can submit them on. But the last question that I do have for you, Loic, before we do so, is looking back on the teams that you have helped scale in the past, what is one aspect in hiring you had wished you had learned or improved on earlier in your career?
I would say that this conscious, so being aware that no matter what, you will do mistakes. So when I was doing my first hiring, I was really like, I should not do any mistakes. So basically, I was probably too much trying to being really in the scrutiny side and being some kind of too much during the hiring process. So basically, the experience, I wanted to check all the boxes. Is the guy right on that? So is he a good problem solver? How is he facing tough situation? And if I don't know, a problem arises, how will he be reacting and everything? So many, I would say, check box that I wanted to check. That at the end of the day, it was not a really good interactions. And now I'm way more like, you know what, that's fine.
Yeah.
So let's just have a good moment and see if I can fit with that person. I have my tech engineers assessing the hard skills. So I'm mostly focusing on, okay, is that a good person for us and for the company? And for that, I would say just having the checklist, you should have some kind of, in your mind, some kind of 3, 4, I would say specific questions and to see how people react, just to basically start the conversation. But now it's way more conversational so that the experience is great. Even if we don't have, I would say, end hiring the person, I want the experience to be great. Yeah. Because if we say, well, you know what, it's not the person for us, for whatever reason, I know that the person will have a good experience during the the interview. And then if someone says, oh, I've seen a position at DocuSign, say, oh, they were nice. They were really nice. Yeah. So that the person will apply. So that helps. That helps. And so another statistic, I don't know in which book, I think it was in Economics or whatever book I read, saying that one person that is not happy is talking to 10 people, and one person that is happy barely talk to one. So having a good experience is definitely, I would say, really important, because if the person gets out and is not happy with the experience, he can basically talk to 10 person, and then network effect, and then you're in a pretty bad spot. So one example, so one person was applying, we had a really good interaction, but decided to choose someone else. And that person basically sent an email, some kind of a really angry email to the HR person that was linked, saying, sorry, what the fuck? I thought that everything was doing great, and I understood that it was almost okay. So what's wrong with that? So I basically took my phone, called the person directly, and just explained and spent 1 hour on the phone with that person, explaining the reason why we had to choose someone else. And just doing that, the person came down and saying, damn, thank you so much. And at the end, so she said, thank you. Yeah. She said, thank you, because just explaining and giving the feedback is something she was not used to. And I basically provided, so it was closed, and I'd explained what made the difference. And now the person was, more knowledgeable about herself and understanding what she had to change for the next time. Yeah. And it's, if I need some kind of so that the person was great. And I know for sure that if I call her back now, because I have the same position, she will come. Yeah. Or at least she will consider the position. Right. Because the experience, even if it was a no, was not a bad experience. Right. Right.
And that's something that you emphasize to fix. You want to make sure that she's not leaving with a bad
case. Exactly, because we don't know. We don't know. 1 year from now, she will, I don't know if I have the same position and she's coming back with more experience and more conscious about what was lacking for us at least. Yeah. Everything can change and everything goes so fast. So it's like, you never know. So you have to be nice. And I would say it's also, so I've also as I would say, I've been in the hiring, high position, so being hired and being interviewed, sometimes it's tough not to understand what was wrong. Yeah. So having this opportunity to receive the feedback is just amazing, because you're like, oh damn, okay, so this is what I need to work on. Yeah. So it's when I can, I try to give that feedback to the person directly. So it's I think it's helpful.
Okay, of course. Well, thank you very much. We're gonna open it up to Q&A. There's some questions right up here.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay.
About closing, how to close a candidate.
Yes.
So what we try to do, what I try to do is, so two things are really important during the interview process. The first impression and the last one. So we try to have the, I would say, the nice folks, I would say, in the beginning and at the end, and I'm trying to be the last one. And especially what we try to do is, so I have my, I would say, tech engineers doing the hard skills and stuff, and when they're like, ooh, this is a good one, usually they ping me, and I'm doing the last one, and I'm the closing guy. And this is where I'm just here to assess the soft skill and stuff, but really sealing the deal.
Yeah.
And so just for the person to feel that, damn, the VP, and I'm sorry, I have a title, but it's for the, say, especially young engineers, like the VP is talking to you during the interview process and being nice and saying, I want you as part of my team, is usually seen as some kind of a mark of respect. And it's some kind of a trigger saying, oh, damn, they're taking it seriously. So it's a good closing, I would say, discussion. And I would say I'm saying that, but it's DocuSign is really highly graded on Glassdoor. We have a really good reputation, working on something that is kind of nice. People love the product on the street and stuff. Yeah. So it's easy. So I'm not like, it's not as if I was, I don't know, working for some kind of, I would say, really old company with a brand that is not really, I would say, appealing. So yes, I'm probably in I would say, easy situation. But yeah, doing that way. So doing the tough art skill in between, I would say, too soft and more nice people, more gentle and more selling is probably good from that perspective. And I would say, so we'll talk a bit about the product, but we are definitely in a position where right after the interview, we have, so basically we use a system, and I don't talk about it, but we use a system to track all the feedbacks, and the hiring manager, which is usually me, or one of my managers, when all the lights are green and everyone is saying, yes, you can go. Basically, it's automatically triggering an offer letter. So basically, at the end of the day, the engineer can receive a DocuSign envelope just to sign a contract. Yeah. And so other companies cannot compete. You can compete on the money, on the salary, and whatever. But from the hiring process, at the end of the interview loop, we are able to just send a contract like that. And basically, you just sign on your phone, and you're done. Yeah. So the first, I would say, the approach is really fast, and our process are really fast, and this is also important. Yeah. Is there anything in particular that you say or you try to do when you're actually trying to sell a candidate that you really like? Yes, and so it's funny. I was I had a contractor, a really amazing guy. So Mike, if you hear us, told me something really interesting, that what he was looking for when he was interviewing person is always trying to understand what is their next job. So my job as a manager is to make your story, or this chapter of your story in my company, the best you can, and trying to align that with your next job. So usually at the end, it's like, and it's some kind of so now everyone will be trying to do that and should be doing that. It's trying to understand, okay, now you will be working for us, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, maybe 10, I don't know. Anyway, no matter what, you have some kind of a plan. And you want to be a manager, you want to be, I don't know, a principal architect or whatever. I need to understand that, because my job is to make you grow inside the company. And I have access to all this opportunity in the company. So I need to understand what you are and what are your competency. And usually when you ask that, so basically what do you want to do? So my question is usually that, what do you want to do after your story at DocuSign? And people are like, well, yeah, so you will be working for us for like 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. This is the market. So what is your next job? And my job is to make sure that you can be really well prepared for the next job. And because that's life, this is it. Yeah. And so, you know, the boomerang effect, which is basically people getting out and coming back. We had so many examples because we prepare them to our genius, we make them grow, and they have an opportunity in a field that, so I have someone in mind that was working, so his dream was working on VR. And we don't have that at DocuSign. But we make it in a way that he was working closely with the UX, I would say, environment, and trying to understand everything associated with the design and everything. And then he was part of a VR team at Facebook. And that was nice. And the guy was, thank you. And I'm for sure, if we have a position, let's say 2 years from now in the company, he will come back. Yeah. Because this is our job. At the end of the day, you know that people are, so we are not attached to a company for 10 or 20 years usually. So we want to make that the best part. So that's, if you leave, and we have a new position, and you want to come back.
Yeah.
So it's trying to think like that, make the people like they're not trying to track me or to trap me in the company. They just want to make me grow and be useful for the time we have here. And usually that's something people are not used to here. And when you apply that, because you have to say, but you have to apply that, people are thankful. And even if they leave because it's life, they want to come back at some point.
Yeah.
And we have so many examples of people doing the boomerang that it shows that, that's a good way to do it and to close.
I see. Any other questions in here that you'd like to address?
So diversity and how to ensure that you have the diverse in terms of gender and culture. And do we have a specific process to evaluate the culture fit and ensuring that the diversity is the one you'd like to have? First of all, I would say DocuSign, we have this, so it's part of it's hard to define a culture, but we are really open to, and so we have, I would say, the usual training and everything, blah, blah, blah. But I would say, set aside the, diversity program that any company has, we have a really diverse team. And we're looking for diversity. So basically, by construction. So we have done some acquisition in Brazil, in Israel, in France. I would say that's a kind of diversity from an engineering perspective, because the way engineers are working in Israel or in France or in the US are totally, I would say, different ways to approach problems. So when you have hard problems to solve at scale, you have a lot on distributed systems. Having different ways to look at the same problem is always good. So that's part of I would say, one of the diversity aspect that we have. That said, we have some kind of a commitment. So it's not a written commitment, but for example, for the gender, the gender diversity, we have some kind of, and we are pretty good. We are pretty good, to be fair. But we want to make sure that part of the, I would say, for one job, usually we see between 5 and 10%. Okay. Part of those 5 or 10, we have to, and it's some kind of a commitment at the NGLT or leadership, engineering leadership team, to have at least one woman as part of the, and you don't hire if you don't have seen at least one woman for the job. Because sometimes, if you look at the pipeline, it's less than 5%. So you have to basically force yourself to make sure that those persons, so I would say, are part of the panel. Yeah. So yes, we force ourselves to have those persons as part of the panel. At the end of the day, we pick the best person, no matter what. But still, we are trying to have a diverse panel, which is that. The other way to make it happen is to be really strong on the women in tech. So I have a lot of, and I'm personally, I would say, coach for women in the company. But we have this strong involvement in the women in tech conference or meetup and everything. Yeah. So we are pretty strong in that. So for the gender stuff, and even for the, I would say, LGBT. And there's some other letters. I'm sorry, I don't have those. We are really active with that, yeah. And we are really inclusive. That said, we have a process to make sure that we have this diversity. So we have the data, so we know how diverse we are, and we have all the data regarding the salary to make sure that we are fair, and we make sure that the panel is quite diverse. But that's it. From a process perspective, that's it. This is what we have. But when you are inclusive with all the referral, basically it's naturally becoming diverse because we are inclusive. So people want to join, and people that are, I don't know, whatever I would say kind of minority they are, they feel really good in the company. So basically, when they are friends, they refer them, and so basically it's getting more and more diverse. Yeah. So it's a positive. It's definitely one of the assets of this company is to have this kind of diversity. Yeah. It's really interesting. Okay. And Loic, would you mind picking out one last question just to finish this off? Okay, so regarding the scale, this one, okay, distribution, this one is kind of interesting. Well, a lot of interesting questions, but so two. I would just pick two. So the first one is how much DocuSign is distributed? Does it make sense for DocuSign to hire engineers in San Francisco and why? So we are distributed. So we have engineering offices so in Brazil, in France, in Tel Aviv, in Chicago, in Seattle and San Francisco. Basically, we were a Seattle company in the beginning, and San Francisco just came after. What we see, so for example, between a French engineer working in France and then someone working in San Francisco, definitely the cost is not the same.
Yeah.
It's definitely not the same. I would say just on the salary, but also on the office. So having an office in San Francisco is really expensive. And when you grow, you need another floor and everything. It's a lot of money to spend.
Yeah.
We were, I would say, historically more like an on-site kind of company. So I would say culturally, most of our people loves to be on-site.
Yeah.
And working in the company. That said, we are more and more opening to remote positions, and this is definitely key in that market. So I would say hiring in a place sometimes makes sense because you need that person to be there because there's so much interaction. So I will give an example. Part of my team is working with what we call the enterprise apps. So everything that is linked to the billing or I would say the marketing systems and everything. So that, well, so you have your product and then you have your Salesforce, you have the, I don't know, Zora for the billing system and everything. To discuss, so this is part of IT. So having an engineer working on that interactions and the integrations, you have to be close to the team that is working on those I would say other systems. So having someone on site and where the rest of the team is definitely key.
Yeah.
People remote in that case, well, it's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
But there's definitely, I would say, a position where, and the last hire we did is someone from, I think it's from, so Matt, if you will hear us, it's from, I think it's San Antonio, I think so. Anyway, now we don't care really anymore. So it can be fine, but it's probably, it's usually ad hoc. So it's, sometimes you need someone and someone in a place. But if you just need someone, you pick the best wherever the person is. If it's San Francisco, if it's Seattle, we don't really care. But yes, it makes sense to hire in San Francisco for sure. And the last one is, how do you compete? Compete with Facebook and Google at DocuSign. You have a brand, but not as big as Google and Facebook. That's a good question. I would say the easy way is to talk about the impact. So when you're part of a small company and DocuSign is still small, your ability to make an impact and to change the way the company is working and to really see that, damn, I'm doing some stuff and this year I changed that and that and that. And basically the CEO is aware of it.
Yeah.
So having this ability at Google, I don't believe it's possible because it's too big. And same for Facebook. For sure, you will have to maybe I would say work on harder problem, but really specific. I would just take an example. If you do some Kubernetes, you want to work on Kubernetes, being part of the team that is doing it at Google is probably a team of hundreds. So you will be probably focusing on the network aspect. So you will be probably facing tough problem in the network aspect of Kubernetes, but the big picture will still be like, not sure. Doing that in a company that you are the person doing the stack and playing with it, well, you have to encompass all the problem. So it's, of course, the brand is important, but the ability to make an impact in the company is even more important, especially in your career. I would say that going to Google as a junior engineer is probably not the best choice to do because the diversity of problem you will be facing will be very limited. So probably hard problems, but really, I would say in a scope that is really tight. So it's, at the end of the day, it's okay to compete with those guys. The only problem is, and it's a hard one, is the salary problem. So when you compete with Netflix, and Netflix is known to basically have the salary, the highest salary on earth, I guess, for our industry, it's hard to compete on the money side. And it's usually in a healthy discussion. And this is where having a good culture, a good company, and focusing on the career, it's important.
Yeah,
probably at Netflix you can make 10% more.
Yeah,
probably. Do we want to align with that? Not sure. Look at what so basically I'm here to build your career and help you grow. Will they do the same? I don't know, maybe, but for sure, my job is to do that.
Yeah.
So it's like, at the end of the day, it's okay. It's totally okay to face the likes of Facebook and Google, both from a technical and also from I would say, more career perspective.
All right, well, that's going to wrap us up. Thank you very much, Loic. Please stay tuned for other webinars that are going to be coming on up in the future. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.